Welcome back to the channel. Ooh, I'm excited. Today, actually before we get into what we're talking about today, I mean you already know by the title, but I did fix the audio. So before I was using a shotgun mic and it was picking up a lot of the background noise of the street out there, so I got a lapel mic, so this should be a little bit better for audio quality. But today, we are talking about beginner's guide to modifying a Subaru. I don't think my hand's gonna line up with that. But before we even jump into this stuff, I want to disclose to you guys that doing any of the modifications that I'm about to talk to you guys about will void your warranties. They will 100% void your warranties, so modify your car at your own risk. But with that being said, I'm going to caveat on that and say also there is no right or wrong way to modify a car. I mean, there kind of is, but actually there's not really. It's your car. Do whatever you want to it. But this is what I've done with all of my Subarus in the past to just make them fun daily drivers. Now it's a little subjective to whatever you want. Maybe you have different angles, maybe you have a specific idea for the car for what you want. But this is going to be a really general overview of just beginner's guides to modifying a Subaru. So with that, we're just going to jump right into it. Ooh! Now we're under the premises that you just bought your car used, and if that's the case, this is going to apply to you. If you bought your car new, take it into consideration, but it's not something that you're going to absolutely have to do. My seatbelt just scared the shit out of me. So if you bought your car used, the first thing you want to do before even modifying it is making any repairs necessary. If anything is broken, missing, or just plain not working, go ahead, swap it out and replace it with a working component or the part if it's missing. Now let's jump into maintenance. So with maintenance, you're gonna have to make sure that the car is spick and span before you can even start modifying it. That's gonna be brakes, oil, transmission, differentials, spark plugs, whatever you need to do. What I recommend to you guys is look at your odometer, see how many miles are on the car, look at the Subaru service schedule and see what needs to be done. Now, if you have a detailed history of what has already been done to the car, this might check off a couple boxes for you so that way you don't have to do them. But make sure you're jumping on that maintenance before even starting to modify your car. After you've done the maintenance and you're ready to go, I mean, you can count this as a modification if you'd like, but get some good tires. So if you're buying your car used, chances are the tires on there might not be the best. Tires are your best investment. If you don't know a lot about tires, you can check back to the tire video I made when it comes to Subarus and their all-wheel drive system. But tires are going to be crucial for your success when driving these cars. It's not only about safety, but it's also about handling and everything that goes into it. And then once you've knocked out those three things, what I would do is start modifying the car at that point, because it should be good to go. And if you're missing something, then jump on it. But let's talk about some of the modifications. We're gonna break this out into a couple different categories. We're gonna go over engine, drivetrain, brakes, suspension, all the good stuff. This is the order. These are all in order of how I would modify a car as well. So now that we've covered the basics of just getting the car to a level where you can actually modify it, we're ready to jump into it. So we're gonna jump into the engine category, and then we're just gonna go down the list and just hit a couple different points. So with the engine, the first thing that I always do when it comes to these cars is buy an air oil separator. They really help the longevity of these cars when it comes to the PCV system and the blow-by that's pushing back through the intake track. A couple of good brands that I've used in the past are Crawford, IAG, which I have on the car now. Perrin is another good one. There's a lot of them out there, but those, I mean, I would stick to those three. After you've got that air oil separator, what I always do next is get an access port. So the access port is a fantastic tool not only for tuning, but also for monitoring the car. So the access port allows you to set 6 different gauges, that's 6, on the access port, so it gives you a representation of what the car is doing. Normally, I set find knock learn, feedback knock, dam, boost, air fuel ratio, intake air temperature, blah, blah, blah. That way it gives me a good representation, because I don't like, my car heat soaks a little bit, so it's a good thing for me to monitor, especially if you're on a top mount intercooler. It also helps you out. I mean, even though the air is already past the MAF, it's not going to give you the best representation, but add like 10-15 degrees on top of that and it should be about accurate. After I've gotten an access port, I am ready to tune the car and I can actually do fun things to it. So after that, I would normally get an intake. Generally, I've stuck with the Cobb in the past. On my old 08 STI, I had the Perrin cold air intake, and I will never run another cold air intake living in Washington State. It rains a lot here, especially lately. We've been having some floods. So with that intake sits down inside of the fender, down here, but on the opposite side. And with that, you have the chance of sucking up some water through that intake. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Don't be someone to hydro lock your engine. Now, this is where things get a little different. So with all my other STIs in the past, I've never had to worry about this issue, but if you have a 2015 plus STI, Something you have to keep in mind is you cannot run an intake and a downpipe on the same tune. Cobb does not support it for an OTS map. I always recommend Pro Tunes over OTS maps, but this is something to keep in mind. So if you have a 2015 plus STI, you're gonna have to do injectors and a fuel pump if you want to run, and the fuel pressure regulator also. I've totally spaced on that one. If you do want to run that downpipe and intake combo, and you're gonna have to get a Pro Tune on top of that. Now with injectors, I normally go with ID. Cobb is what I have on this car. Now I have the Cobb 1050s, which are rebranded ID 1050s. They are the exact same injector. And then on top of that, you've got your fuel pump. Deechworks does sometimes get a little shit, but I've always ran the Deechworks fuel pumps and I've never had one of them go out on me. I've read a lot of forums where they have on people, just I haven't experienced that. If you don't want Deechworks, AEM is another good one. Cobb uses AEM fuel pumps from my understanding, and they're fantastic. But after I've gotten those, normally I jump to the downpipe next. So I've always ran catted downpipes because I don't like the idea of boost creep. I mean, it's still gonna happen even with a catted downpipe, but it does help a decent amount. So I have the Cobb downpipe on the car, as you probably would have guessed. You've gone ahead and you've got that downpipe on. Why not throw a boost controller on there? But remember, to run a boost controller, you're gonna need an E-Tune or a Pro Tune, something. You cannot run this on a factory map. So with the boost controller, I've only ever ran 3 ports, and I've only ever ran the Grimspeed and the Cobb. They're like 80 bucks. They both work the same. That's a boost controller. I mean, there's not much differentiation there. Since we are turning that boost up a little bit, it's not a bad idea to jump in and get a bypass valve at that point. I've ran a lot of bypass valve, blow-off valve, hybrid blow-off valves in the past, and the ones that I've generally settled on for bypass valves have been Cobb, Perrin. I think that's really it for bypass valves. Whenever it comes to blow-off valves, it's entirely up to you for whatever sounds you like. I've ran the Go Fast Bits hybrid one in the past. I've ran the HKS sequential on my old 06 STI. You know, just take your pick, whatever one you want. Just make sure you're getting a good brand and good quality for that. And then finally, I would jump on an intercooler, whether it be a top mount intercooler or a front mount intercooler, but I'll make a video in the future going into details about both of them. But for the time being, do your research on what one you want. Generally, front mount intercoolers will help keep the car a lot cool because you got a lot less heat soak. But top mount intercoolers are going to be a lot more responsive because you have a lot less piping and you have a lot less bends in those piping because it's going directly from the turbo through the intercooler into the throttle body. You just get better throttle response on those. But those are just some general overview for the engine stuff to help make your daily driver just that much more fun. Now that we've talked about the engine aspect of things, let's talk about the drivetrain, the part that you're going to be touching, you're going to be shifting every day, and you're going to be having all sorts of fun things in your car. So the first thing that I always touch is the shifter mechanism, whatever you want to call it. I always take out the factory one. I always put in a short shifter. I've always ran Cartboy in the past. I ran the Cobb one once, the Cobb double adjustable, whatever you want to call it, and I hated it. For some reason, I did not enjoy it, and I've always been just a fixed short shifter dude. Cartboy, can't go wrong with it. But after I've kind of got that nice good feeling down, I always jump to a little bit stronger mounts. So I always do the pitch stop mount and the transmission mount. I recommend doing these together. For the pitch stop mount, you have a lot of options out there. The ones that I've ran in the past are Perrin, IAG, Cobb, and there's a whole slew of other ones. Get whatever you want, get whatever fits your budget. Just make sure it's a strong enough one. Even the OEM STI Group N pitch stop mount is a great way to go. But with that pitch stop mount, like I said, make sure you're doing that transmission mount. So with transmission mounts, I've only ever ran 2 brands, IAG and Perrin. Perrin was a good one, but the thing I didn't like about the Perrin is it rusted very quickly up here for some reason in Washington State. Now, I have the IAG Competition Series one in my car now, and it does create a lot of NVH. If you don't know what that means, it's noise, vibration, harshness. Now, with that, I mean, it doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you, get something that's a little bit softer. The Group N STI transmission mount is also another cheap and good way to go. And then the last beginner mod for just the drivetrain stuff I would recommend would just be swapping out some of those gummy bushings that you got going on. So on that cross member that you have holding the transmission up, White Line and a couple other companies make some bushings. You just swap them in, swap them out. You can get the rear differential inserts that go in and out. Or, I mean, if you really want to go high and mighty, I mean, this is something that I still got to install, but the giant rear differential carrier, this thing's massive. This thing is huge. It's massive, but I mean, some drivetrain things, they really do make the car feel a whole lot different, night and day difference, even something as simple as just bushing inserts. Just if you're doing them, knock them out. You might get frustrated with bushings because sometimes they do get a little bit frustrating, but I promise you, these make a difference. The next one we're going to talk about is brakes and suspension. So to jump in brakes, a couple good brake upgrades for you if you're looking to get a little more stopping power and a little more heat out of them, swapping out the rotors and swapping out the pads. I mean, pads are relatively cheap to swap out. You can get a decent set for about $200. StopTech, DBA, there's all sorts of companies out there that make them. Rotors are a little more expensive. You could probably pick up a full set of rotors for your STI or WRX for around $400 to $600 for just some good budget rotors. Now that's also going to depend on how much money you actually have to spend and how much you want to spend. But finally, a good last cheap, really cheap brake upgrade. Actually, I got two of them. Brake lines and a master cylinder brace. Master cylinder brace is like one of the first things I install on my cars. It makes the brakes so much more responsive. So the master cylinder brace just keeps the firewall from flexing whenever you hit the brakes. These cars, for some reason, I mean, they're just not that strong, so they move a little bit. But that brace that sits like right up here holds that master cylinder against the firewall and does a great job with it. When it comes to brake lines, they're a little annoying to swap out because you get brake fluid absolutely everywhere. Literally everywhere. And I hate the sticky feeling of it. But brake lines, they really do. So with rubber brake lines, you get the expansion and the contraction whenever you're on and off the brakes. With stainless steel brake lines, it helps reduce that quite a bit. They're also a lot more durable to the elements. Maybe you're at the track and there's things flying up hitting your car because you like to take your car out for fun on the weekends. Who knows? But stainless steel brake lines, cheap, easy to do. You can get a set for like $100. And it's, I mean, in all honesty, it's not terribly bad. It's just really annoying to do. And then we're going to talk about suspension. So suspension is another fun one that really changes the look of your car aesthetically and how it performs. So the first thing that I always do whenever it comes to these cars is I swap out the factory struts or springs, whatever you're swapping out, whatever your budget just is. If you don't have budget, or if you don't have money for coilovers right now and you're on a budget, lowering springs are a good way to go. RCE yellows are a really popular one that people go with. But for me, I always go coilovers. With this car, as you can see, I went bags. But for coilovers, I always have ran the Fortunato 500s, the Feel 441s, and then if you're looking for some budget coilovers, get some BCs. If you do get BCs, just make sure you're cleaning them regularly. But whenever you get coilovers, bags, lowering springs, whatever it may be, you're gonna have to correct the geometry of your suspension after you do that. So you're gonna need some lower control arms, and if you're really drastically changing it, you're gonna need some rear toe arms. So some good LCAs that I've always ran have been the white line ones. They're straightforward. Or you can get I think they're SBC, I think. They're pretty much white lines, but they're just black instead of gray. And with lower control arms, you're gonna have to get some toe arms to be able to correct that toe. Just make sure you have the proper suspension components to be able to put that geometry back to how it should be. But once you've kind of got that part figured out, some front and rear sway bars and end links, great modification to not only help with handling of the car, but it just makes it feel so much tighter. And who doesn't like it tight? Oh! That got weird, didn't it? But with those sway bars, you're gonna have to get some end links because the stock end links are very thin. They will snap over time. If you swap out to a massive sway bar, they'll break. So I mean, I ran the white line ones in the past and I hate them. I hate them with a passion. The stupid like ball joint socket thing on them, like why? I found great success though with the Perrin spherical rear end links for this car. And then I also have a set of Perrin polyurethane bushing end links for the front that I still have yet to install. But that's just some very general basic suspension stuff that you guys can do to your cars to help improve the handling, the feel, and the overall ride comfort of what you're trying to get to. So the one last bit that I just thought about that I wanted to touch on is the exterior and the interior of these cars. Go ahead and modify them however you guys want. The exterior is just a great representation of yourself. Make it look the way you want to, make the interior look the way you want to, just do it however you want to do it. There's no right, there's no wrong way. It's your car, you're modifying it, you're paying for it. So go ahead, do it however you see fit. You're gonna have a bonanza, a banana bonanza, doing all the banana bonanza. That's harder to say than I thought. If you can say that 3 times fast, I applaud you. But anyways, like I was saying, do it however you see fit. One last thing I do want to touch on again is that modifying your car, if it is still within warranty, will void that warranty. So modify it at your own risk. And if you don't want to modify it, wait till you're out of that warranty range. Or if you don't want to modify it at all, just don't do it and enjoy the car stock, because they're plenty fun just from the factory. But I'm gonna end it here, you guys. I'm gonna end it here. I appreciate all the time that you guys spend with me here on the channel in this video, past videos, future videos, whatever videos we make. And if you guys have any ideas, suggestions, topics, debates, anything, feel free to reach out. I respond to everyone. So if you do have an idea, I do have a community page tab open on my channel where you can go to submit your ideas. I'll respond to you and we'll get them lined up in the queue. And if this content helped you guys, smash, stab, dance, like, do whatever you gotta do. Just make that like tab turn blue. Your boy appreciates it. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, do that over here today, down here by this wheel. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out, homies. Woo!